Hi, and welcome to Promo Insiders, the counselor podcast that covers what matters most to the promotional products industry, from hard-hitting news to fun trends. I'm Theresa Hegel, Executive Editor of Digital Content, and today I'm joined by Chris Ruvo, Executive Editor of Counselor Magazine. So today I wanted to talk to Chris a little bit about a story he had written recently about shipping and how this holiday season it's going to be already is a big issue. So if you haven't checked out the story, it still has a lot of great information on it, but we're going to try to keep this discussion even more up to date with kind of what's going on. But let's just kind of set the scene. Why is shipping such a big problem this year? Why is it a challenge?
The most basic answer is just absolutely unprecedented levels of demand. Basically, with the coronavirus pandemic, I think it's not a secret to anybody that online shopping accelerated greatly. I think they say it's several years of e-commerce growth basically occurred within a matter of a few months, and that trend is now carrying over into the holiday season. One stat that I saw says that total demand or total sales for online in the U.S. during the holiday period should be about 189 billion. That's up 33% from the year before. And even though your major carriers like FedEx and UPS, and even though they're partners that they contract out deliveries to, your kind of smaller localized couriers are doing their best to keep up, there's just demand that's beyond their capacity to meet. I think that the most telling stat I saw is that there's between Thanksgiving and Christmas period, there's going to be demand for about, on average, I think it's 86 million parcels per day. Whereas there's going to be capacity for about 79 million. So that on any given day, you have a disparity of about 7 million packages that they're just not going to be able to get to. So yeah, and it's most fundamental. That's what it is. That it's a capacity issue, and part of what's compounding that capacity issue is that there's also a shortage of vans. There's just not enough, and that was another problem caused by the coronavirus pandemic, is that the van production slowed down. There wasn't enough vehicles out there to just deliver things to people, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
And that you shared was really telling, with just the amount of packages that are to be shipped, but how many are actually going to kind of get there. So somebody is kind of losing out in this situation. Lots of people, really.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
And I do want to mention, I forgot to mention this before, but if anybody has any comments or questions during the podcast, please feel free to type them into the chat box, and we'll do our best to address them. I'd love to hear people's stories of what you guys are dealing with, if you're dealing with any kind of shipping issues, or if you have any creative strategies you've come up with to kind of get around it. So please feel free to comment. But I guess to segue, how is this affecting promo? It's affecting everybody kind of more broadly, but what are the specific issues that the promotional products industry is kind of going through?
Yeah, so it's I think maybe in one of the most direct ways and telling ways we've seen is that there's been pickups that haven't happened. A particular supplier we spoke with, they had a fairly large pickup scheduled for a certain day. UPS just didn't come, and they reached out. The supplier did, and the UPS got back with it was almost sad. It was almost kind of like a pleading, saying, well, I'm sorry, but there's just literally nothing we could do. We're going to get to you in a few days, but we just don't have anybody to send to you right now. We're telling other smaller customers that we're not even going to be able to get to them at the moment. So while that's an anecdotal example, it's kind of representative of some of what's happening. And two, we should point out, this isn't just something that's particular to the U.S. This is going on in Canada too, where we're hearing from certain Canadian companies that in some ways it's even worse because the infrastructure there isn't quite at the same levels that it is in the U.S. So, for instances, you might have a delivery service show up and say, okay, we only have room for 5 or 6 packages, but you might have 50 that you need taken care of, but you're only going to get that 5 or 6 in that day. So it's things like that are occurring that are causing issues. and it's prompting suppliers, the good ones anyway, to really be proactive about telling their distributors, please, to the extent that you can, like try to plan in advance. Like they're doing everything they can to get stuff staged and ready to go, but they can't produce an order until it's ordered, right? So,
yeah. And that's I mean, I think that's why we had had another podcast, maybe a month or two ago, where we were talking about Q4 gifting and how important it was to get this stuff done earlier than ever before because of just this kind of these issues.
Yes.
So I mean, how much worse is it going to get?
We have bad news is we haven't hit the peak yet. They're predicting that probably the time frame of like the 13th of December till about the 21st is probably going to be the peak of the peak, so to speak. And you could expect, I think, one study from lateshipment.com or something like that. They study this kind of what they do. They said that you could expect anywhere from like 14 to 18% of packages to be delivered late. Like they'll get there, but they're gonna be late. And then there's in certain like larger metropolitan areas where demand is really heavy, like your New York's, Chicago's, LA's, places like that. It could be as high as 30%. So these carriers are doing what they can, but there's just only so much capacity that they're going to be able to meet during those really crunch times. So you can expect an intensification of some of these issues. Delayed pickups might be a little bit more delayed, and hopefully you're not outright having missed pickups, but it's a potential.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess one of the things is like we can't really. Maybe you shouldn't be making guarantees to customers about like shipping dates because you can't guarantee it right now. I mean, that may be not something that people would want to hear,
right. That's a tough position to be in as a promotional products distributor, to say, who knows if I'll be able to make that in hands date. So one of the things,
but at the same time, if you say that and then don't make it, like, is it? I don't know. I always wonder, like, is it worse to say, oh, we can't do, just be honest, like we're not sure we're gonna be able to do it, or try to like say we'll get it by that date, but then not do it, like, which is
I think the whole definitely under promise and over deliver is the way to go. So setting realistic expectations, especially with your better clients that you have relationships with, they might be more apt to understand. But what you'd really like to do is and really it's something you probably should have even been doing already, but if not, like, start today, is getting those. You want to minimize those last minute orders to the extent possible. And listen, we exist in the real world too. We know that not every client you're going to be able to proactively contact and say, hey, you did this, like, what do you want to do this year? Let's do it, order it today, and it's going to magically happen. We know things don't always come together like that, but what we'd suggest and what suppliers have been suggesting to distributors is take those big customers that you have that you really need to take care of. Proactively contact them if you haven't done so already, and get the order in now. And do it as soon as possible. And to the extent possible, you might want to streamline it, because then that's going to help production happen faster as well. And the more that you can do in advance to get things out the door, the better, basically.
Yeah. Well, so what are some other things that people in the industry can do to kind of deal with this situation?
Yeah, I think this is kind of like a catch-all, so to speak, but it's not bad advice. Is the communication between suppliers and distributors is so key right now, where suppliers really do need to keep communicating exactly where they're at and what they believe they're going to be able to do, and then distributors do, as you pointed out before, do need to communicate, hey, this is realistically what we can do given shipping constraints. I don't think it's a secret to anyone, including end buyers, that there's a lot of demand on shippers at the moment, and it's something that needs to be planned and accounted for. So I think if you approach it in that way, but present, hey, a solution of some kind to that, as to, okay, we can meet such and such date with these kinds of items. Does that work for you? I think that works. Another thing is, you just be creative in how you do some of the solutions. There's a distributor out of Boston. His name's John Resnick. He's with Performa, and one of his big clients is a craft brewery. And every Black Friday, they'd have like this huge blowout merch sale online and in store, and it would result in just a big influx of orders. Well, John, anticipating increased demand online and also issues with shipping, and he knew people wanted their stuff right away, said, hey, instead of doing that on Black Friday, let's stretch that out for a whole week. So they started it the week prior to Black Friday, and they did this sale through like the whole week. And they had orders, instead of having that one glut of orders on that one day, it was spaced out over the week. The upshot of it was it caused less demand on his team. They were able to get orders out quicker. It was less immediate demand on their shippers because it was all local shipments to that.
Right.
So there was less demand on their local shippers, and they sold more merch over that time
Yeah.
than the previous Friday. So that's just one example of like thinking for creative workarounds that you can kind of minimize pressure on suppliers and on shippers to the extent possible.
Yeah, and I mean that solution is great for, the situation we're in right now where shipping is so strained, but it sounds like it's a model they could maybe use next year too, because it resulted in more sales. So,
Yeah,
like it's one of those like out of the box kind of thinking. Like just because it's called Black Friday doesn't mean it has to be just that day. And
right.
especially if it's things that are being done, online sales, there's no need to like limit it to a certain like small window.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I think there's been a lot of like aha moments or bits of ingenuity, if you will, that have come about because of the pandemic with stuff like that. Like, who knew a year ago that we as an industry would have pivoted the way that we have? Not just the PPE, which is kind of almost an old story by now. It is an old story by now,
Right.
but like the move to drop shipments and kitted solutions, and which of course are also increasing the demand on shippers, but still it's been an impressive pivot in a way of like, hey, instead of doing it this way, we could do it that way, and it works too, and actually it might work better. So you never know what you might be able to come up with.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities. Obviously there's a lot of challenges, and that's kind of something we've seen throughout the pandemic is that it's very, very challenging and devastating for some, but there's also opportunities there if you maybe step back and think about things in a different way, or kind of like the overused word pivot, and look somewhere else and see kind of where those opportunities that maybe you had missed previously were. Do you think that the shipping issues are going to continue into Q1, or will there be like a big drop off at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're not going to be. I mean, obviously, there's the incredible demand because the holiday season is really
Mhm.
driving the madness of the moment, so to speak. But I do think there will be continued strain on shippers because we're just we're conducting our personal household economies are happening in a different way now
Right.
we're buying digitally so much more than we were as a society before. So it's just and what an evolution that might have happened over 5 or 6 years has now had to happen in some odd months, right? So
Right.
it's just they're playing catch up to a degree, and given the numbers that we're seeing with like the unfortunate COVID surge and everything like that, and the fact that we're heading into winter where people are less inclined to go out anyway, I do think you'll continue to see heightened demand, certainly over what a normal Q1 would be. Maybe the bright spot though is after having made it through the holiday peak, Q1 is going to probably seem simpler to these shippers. So that like that DEFCON 1 level is going to come down a little bit, and I think it'll be more manageable. But I do think it will, compared to like a normal Q1, it's going to be up, and there's going to be significant demand on shippers, and it will still be important for promo distributors and suppliers to plan in advance as much as possible with end clients and try to get stuff ordered in and shipped out early.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I think we kind of, covered a lot of the broad strokes of what you'd already written about and kind of updated people. But is there anything else that you haven't mentioned yet that you think people should know about?
Just one thing, and it's more of a back end issue, and it's not having huge problems yet, but it's something to keep an eye on. Is that getting stuff in from China has proven more difficult.
Mm.
There's capacity issues on with container vessels. There's issues at the ports with just having enough workers because of COVID, contact tracing, and things of that nature, and just people genuinely being out sick. That it's tough to get stuff ported and then on a truck and out. So that's been another thing that's something to keep an eye on. From what I've heard at this point, that's not like the crushing immediate issue that the delivery to end user component of transportation is.
But it's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, just keep an eye. That'll be the next podcast, I guess.
Yeah, maybe.
Hopefully not, actually. Yeah.
Right. Well, hopefully, yeah, maybe this will be a crisis that is averted before we ever have to address it. Which.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, but it is interesting how just kind of that trickle down of coronavirus happened, and then all these supply issues, just the supply chain. Like I see it just like at the grocery store with, now when you get like toilet paper, there's some weird brands that I've never heard of in my life. So like,
right.
do I want to use this? I'm a little, nervous about using this brand that I've never seen, but it's my only choice. So
I wish I would have been in the toilet paper business. I'd be retiring right about now. Probably be selling my steak, and that's it.
We chose a different paper business, and
yeah,
not quite the same.
Yeah.
No matter what people say about the newspaper business, I mean, they do compare it to.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not going to go there. Never mind. Forget it.
Right.
Anyway, but so I think this was really informative. So thanks so much for joining us today, Chris, and talking with me about shipping and all the shipping woes that are out there.
Thanks so much for having me. And I'll just final word, everybody, is just like we'll get through it. It's going to happen. The orders are going to go off. It's going to get there one way or the other.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. This was an episode of Promo Insiders, and have a great day.